going to continue with our next speaker. Is the Vice Minister Maximiliano. Are you there? Welcome to the school, Maximiliano. Thanks for the invitation, Olga. I want to congratulate you on the initiative and to tell you that I'm very pleased to be here. I would also like to thank DGIBR for contributing to the School of Internet. I'm going to switch to Spanish now. I don't speak Portuguese, I speak Portuguese. We have a lot of Brazilians in the room. Or we are a majority. No, you're not the majority of the audience. We have like 20% Brazilians here. So I'm going to switch to Spanish. For those who don't know Maximiliano, he is the Secretary of Communications of the Ministry of Communications in Brazil. Everybody tells me that he's the Vice Minister. I don't know how I need to introduce you. But we want to thank you for being here, and we want you to tell us a little bit about everything you have been doing. Brazil is a very important country. It's one of the biggest economies in the world. And in my 40-year experience working with technology, I've been young for many years. I have learned that decisions made by Brazil as regards technology have an impact on all countries in the region. I remember the first digital mobile technology contract in the year 2000. The technology that Brazil acquired, which was European technology, made all the countries in the region to stop using CDMA and working in TDMA at the time. So Brazil has a lot of influence in our region. And it is important, especially for Argentina, because Brazil is our business partner. It's the biggest business partner that we have, even more than China and Europe and the US. And it is also a neighboring country, and we share a lot of things in common. So why don't you tell us a little bit? I know that Brazil is having the 5G process being introduced, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the process and the news and some ideas that you may want to share with us? And thank you once again for being here with us today. Thank you, Olga. I'm going to talk the second most spoken language in Brazil, which is my Portuñol. I'm sorry for any mistakes that I made. I have a presentation that I want to share with the audience. We are already seeing the presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about internet governance here in Brazil. And then I'm going to tell you about the telecommunications scenario in Brazil. And also the most important aspects in the recent years as regards the 5G process and how the 5G is going to have an impact on the development of internet and the apps and services all over the world and in Brazil specifically. First of all, I want to thank you for the invitation and to tell you that it's a great pleasure to represent my country and to work with my friends in Argentina, and also as a member of the SSIG committee. It's an honor to participate in this school because we understand that these are topics that should be discussed and talked about. There's a lot to be done, and there's a lot to agree upon. Initiatives such as the one that Olga has of organizing this internet governance school, it's very important, and that's why it's a pleasure to participate today. Next slide, please. Talking about the Brazilian internet model. Next slide, please. The Brazilian model is a model that we need to think about the Tunisia agenda and internet governance. According to the agenda, it is not something that is at the government level, but there's a lot of responsibilities that need to be coordinated with the private sector, with the civil society, in order to share principles, norms, and rules in the decision-making process to develop internet. And this is one of the paramount things that we should take from this meeting, to understand the importance of working with internet and internet governance from a multi-sector perspective. Understanding that each stakeholder, for example, the government has different capacities and the private sector other capacities, and so on and so forth. Next slide. In the case of Brazil, we have a model that started many years ago, in 1995. It is a multi-sector model with an active participation from society through CGI.br, which is the internet school in Brazil, the committee of that school that follows different principles and values that today are encompassed by the internet civilian framework in Brazil that started in 2014. And those guidelines are something that CGI follows since 2009. Next slide. CGI was founded in 1995, before the Tunisian agenda, before the Internet Civilian Framework. And before talking about multi-sector governance, CGI was developed in Brazil as a multi-sector project. The pioneers of Internet in Brazil took the decision and advocated the fact that Internet should be a multi-sector thing since 1995. It has been adjusted in 2003, specifically to make it more democratic. It has to do with development of internet governance in Brazil. It has no regulatory framework, but it has some recommendations. And since it is a multi-sector framework, making decisions, it is very important in Brazil. It coordinates and integrates initiatives in Brazil, and it has the capacity to promote technical requirements, innovation, and also the spreading of services. It has been, it has been developed by the government of Brazil, but it is not something that is part of the government. It is a private committee with participation of the public and the private sector. So the basic guidelines of CGI are to understand that the government has different needs and priorities that are multilateral, but also understanding that in internet governance it is important to include all sectors and to have a multi-stakeholder approach. One of the guidelines of CGI is that it is democratic, so the representatives of the civil society in Brazil are democratically chosen. Every 3 years we hold elections in Brazil. And also it is a very transparent organization. All decisions are made publicly through the internet site. And when it is necessary, there are also public consultations before making decisions. Next. CGI sets directives for the use of internet in Brazil. It coordinates the use of IPs and domain names in Brazil with policies and procedures as regards activities on the internet and recommendations for technical procedures for the safety and security of networks, and also programs that have to do with certification and development of internet. And it also participates in national and international forums as regards internet. This is the organization of CGI. It's a multi-sector organization with members of the federal government, for example, the ministry where I work, the communication, science and technology, defense, economy. We also have representatives from the provincial governments or state governments, as we call it in Brazil, through the Ministry of Communication, Science and Technology and Innovation. And we also have the participation of elected members from the private sector, representatives from the infrastructure providers, content providers, and also the private sector representatives. We also have the academia representatives. And every 3 years we hold elections to choose the different representatives of these sectors that are highlighted in yellow: the private sector, the academia, and we have here the different positions in each of the sectors. In the federal governments, there are 10 seats. Then we have 3 members from the academia and 4 from the third sector and 4 from the private sector. CGI operations. We do it through consensus. Internet governance is paramount. So the capacity of discussing aspects and understanding the needs of different sectors and to reach common ground. It's not simple. It's not something that is done quickly, but when we do reach an agreement, all the sectors support the decision. And I have said CGI decisions are not mandatory, but are actually recommendations. And CGI recommendations are very important here in Brazil. The operation of CGI is done through the IP management and domain names, For each activity, we follow guidelines. And the executive activities of CGI are carried out through an organization that is called nic.br. We have different projects that have to do with incidents of cybersecurity, indicators, PTT, that are done through NIC. And all the information that I am giving you can be found in this www.cgi.br. As regards telecommunications in Brazil, next slide, please. We have some figures here. We have 43 million broadband access in Brazil, 261 million mobile access, almost 15 million that have to do with TV access. But what is more important for you is to give you an idea of the fixed broadband in Brazil. We have like 20,000 internet access providers in Brazil. Half internet access, as regards broadband in Brazil, are done by those providers, which are small providers. We have 4 big groups, national groups in Brazil, and 20,000 small internet providers. Half of them, or half of the 43 million access of broadband in Brazil, are offered by small providers. And this is because regulations are easy and simple. So that's why we have so many small providers in the country. Next slide. I want to talk about maybe the most important aspect as regards telecommunication in Brazil, which has a huge impact on internet, which is the development of 5G. Next slide. In Brazil, the development of 5G is going to have an impact in different areas. There's going to be a socioeconomic impact, an infrastructure impact, a service impact, and an impact on devices. So when we talk about infrastructure, in order to get 5G services, we need to have some changes, some massive deployment as regards cloud data centers to improve the core future. And when we talk about services, we need to have a change from services provided for users and for businesses. Businesses are going to be positively impacted by this. When we talk about devices, we have changes as regards smartphones, and also the number of sensors is going to increase, the sensors that are getting information to offer better services. So this is the change that we're going to introduce, new services, better services, and helping improving the efficiency of businesses and the socioeconomics aspects. Next slide. There's going to be an impact on the industry, on healthcare services, on public utility services, The cities are going to become intelligent. There are going to be changes in cars. Everything is going to be positively impacted by this. What we did in Brazil, next, please. Please click the screen. This is the evolution of the mobile services in Brazil from 3G, 2G, 3G, 4G. And this is the situation in Brazil. Something important about this presentation is that in the north of Brazil, we have some difficulties of access for optic fiber because we have the Amazonian rainforest, and it is an area with a difficult access. And for telecommunications in Brazil, it has been a huge challenge to be able to bring broadband to the north of the country. We have satellites, we have fixed access, but being able to get optic fiber there has been a huge challenge. Next slide. Last year, in January last year, actually, we developed the guidelines for 5G in Brazil. These are the basic guidelines that, as a Ministry of Communication, we have given Anatel, which is the regulator, to be considered in the 5G process, offering process. I want to highlight some of them. I mentioned that we have a huge challenge as regards the fiber in the remote areas of the country. So here we included two important aspects. In the middle column in green, we have included the backhaul of optic fiber for 1,254 municipalities that didn't have it yet. We have also included .4G mobile band for all places in Brazil with more than 600 inhabitants. If there is a place in Brazil that has 120 houses, it is considered that in that place there should be a 4G mobile band. In the first column, we can see in green the implementation of a program that I believe it's fantastic. 5G is very positive in itself, but I believe that a good thing is the implementation of the PAIS program. Next slide. So in November last year, we did the 5G offering. We had different frequencies in national and regional blocks. And following that process, We had 3 national operators, a new national operator, and 4 regional operators. So in each region in the country, we are going to have at least 5 operators offering the services of 5G or 4G. This has been the greatest offering here in Brazil and one of the biggest in the world. As regards the economic numbers, we had 47 billion reais. But 90% of the money has been used for different obligations. We're going to make the companies offering the services to invest that money. And sometimes they won't do it because it's not economically feasible, but they are going to have to do it. And only 10% of the profits are going to be given to the government. And that's why companies are going to have investment commitments from 2022 to 2030. Next slide, please. Some of the examples of the different commitments that the companies have taken have to do with offering at least 4G in more than 35,000 kilometers of roads, federal roads in Brazil. Brazil is a huge country. We have a lot of transportation issues in the roads, but we didn't have regulations as regards 4G, and now we do. There should be 4G in more than 35,000 kilometers in the roads in Brazil. I insist that a huge challenge for Brazil was offering the optic fiber in the north of the country, where we have huge rivers, the Amazonia River. And so what we did was to have 12,000 kilometers of optic fiber under the rivers, in this case, the Amazonia River. And this is an idea of what we're going to do. 12,000 kilometers of optic fiber that are going to be deployed under the Amazonia River so as to offer optic fiber in the cities in order to offer this access in the north of Brazil. From the east in Belém to the west in the border with Colombia, is going to be possible to connect Peru instead of Peru using the Asian connection from Belém to Fortaleza. We're going to offer a connection to Africa and Europe from the north of Brazil. So through this cable, we are going to have connectivity and to have a better integration of the internet connection for the countries in the region. Next slide. We are going to also offer broadband in schools. The companies have committed 3.1 billion reais for connectivity at schools. This is a pilot project with 181 schools that we are going to continue with this 3 billion investment in order to offer broadband connectivity at schools. Next slide. We are going to bring 4G to more than 7,000 cities that don't have services now. And we're going to offer 5G in all the municipalities and the cities in Brazil. This is the scenario today. We offered connectivity in all the capital cities in Brazil. And now we're going to start offering the cities that have more than 500,000 inhabitants. Some conclusions. Internet in Brazil offers a multi-sector model. Telecommunications have improved a lot. We have a lot of broadband, fixed band, mobile band, and the latest development is 5G, which is going to have an educational, social, and economic impact. So I want to thank you for your time, and I hope that I haven't taken more time than I was given. Thank you so much. I wanted to mention something. I worked in many of the processes of the mobile technology offering, and I want to mention the 5G process because I've been following it, and I think that is important for the region. And the fact that the money is not going to be used only by the government, but it's going to be invested in improvements. And what we talk about revenue by user, it's something that is low. So for a company, it's very difficult to develop a solid and good penetration infrastructure if the money is gone there. So I wanted to mention it as an example for maybe other offerings in Latin America that are taking place. It's not the case of Argentina yet, but I believe that is a very interesting example of a mix between beauty contests, which is the way we did it at the beginning in mobile projects, and the offering itself. So I also wanted to mention I have Oscar Mesano here. I was asking him how many small providers we have in Argentina, and he said 1,500. And in Brazil, there are 20,000. So I was surprised by the numbers. And also, I was surprised by the 4G coverage that you have that covers most of the country. We know that it's a huge country, and as many countries in Latin America, we have beautiful geography, but very difficult for offering access as regards optic fiber and mobile technology. So I wanted to mention that, and if you allow us, we are going to share your presentation with all the audience. Are there any questions for Maximiliano? Can somebody offer or give him a mic?
Yeah. Do you have a few minutes left for another question? Good morning. My name is Lorenzo Martinez from the Dominican Republic. Very interesting discussion. Let me ask you a question. First, I would like to commend you on the Brazilian model. Very impressive. You have a great capability of exchanging money by technology. However, I would like to underscore in the way that universities may benefit to conduct research on 5G as a benefit. And since you operate in line with 4G, 5G, and 3G, w- how costs could be lower, especially for those communities that they have lack of access and they may benefit from that implementation. So first, 5G benefiting or making progress with the research conducted at the university or on the part of the state, and how does that impact on cost for those people that they do not have access to 5G yet. Good. Olga, can we ask two or three questions and then I will gladly take the three of them? Good morning. I would like to ask you what is the perspective of two issues. First, the impact of environmental protection on the deployment of these technologies on public works, especially because increasingly more we are awareness of CO2, the CO2 footprint on the environment. So probably that is one thing that you have addressed so far, especially when the Amazonia in Brazil has an extensive coverage. And the other thing is, what is the impact on the internet of Google, Amazon, Meta, the social networks, since they are paying for the infrastructure of the internet, and how could this endanger in the future this structure? So this question was from Colombia. Any other questions? Any other question? Yes, one more. Good morning. Please introduce yourself. Ernesto Barreto from the University of Asunción in Paraguay. My question is handling the misinformation of 5G. Because in some communities in Paraguay, during the COVID 19 pandemic, we believe that 5G activated some kind of thing on our bodies, and they even burn 4G antennas. We haven't implemented 5G yet. So how do you address that information or misinformation? As you can see, you have a wide range of questions. Can you take them? Sure. Let me take Lorenzo's question. How, from the academic point of view, we are making progress in the development of 5G. We got to understand that 5G is not something per se. It's not something in itself, but it's going to bring benefits, future benefits. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, that probably will impact on the infrastructure. Under development of 5G, we have a national scheme for the Internet of Things. At the same time, we have conducted a plan of international artificial intelligence. Also for the personal data use in the academic world or in the universities, because some people may think that the universities should have their own data center for storing information. In Brazil, the government makes investments so we can file projects for the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, database creation. So apart from 5G, there are many projects that we have underway in Brazil. In connection with the services, we have competition with three important national carriers. And then, subject to that, you have four carriers. So in each city, you have four carriers. The principle of Brazil is to promote competition. And if we need to regulate prices, we have a public regime. However, the internet services are not included there because, however, we believe that this scheme is providing a very good response to the carriers and the operators that we have in the marketplace. However, we have policies for those that cannot afford the service. For example, in the ministry, we have a program that is called Internet of Brazil, where the ministry provides free access to some offices. We have 7,000 agencies distributed across the country that are covered by this program. Also, we are going to distribute SIPs of or chips of mobile telephony where students or university students are going to have access to the internet so they can have access to e-learning content, classes being taught. Now, in connection with the question that was raised by Colombia, I don't know if I understood the question correctly, but what we've done here in terms of development is the importance of having the necessary infrastructure in Brazil. Since everybody's leaving the pandemic behind, so this is very important for developing services, the economy, SMEs, corporations, because during the pandemic, we've seen an exponential growth on the use of internet, more than 100-fold, because of the structure, because of the capacity. So we need to deal with this traffic, to tackle the traffic, to provide an effective, good service to those students that were studying from home, that they were taking Zoom classes. Some corporations, they didn't have a digital strategy at that time, and because of the pandemic, they were forced to provide their services remotely. So we need to have the infrastructure because it's critical to provide the services. And this has been the experience in Brazil. So we need to have this public work infrastructure that allows or facilitates development. Let me take the question of Paraguay because of the antennas burned. We had the same experience in Brazil at the very beginning. People argue that the 5G antenna was going to kill birds, or even worse, that was going to cause cancer. So, in order to mitigate this reluctance in Brazil, was to reaffirm what we have done for a long time, is to provide the guidance of the WHO, since the World Health Organization includes a committee where we adopt all the regulations issued by or the guidance issued by the committee. And only one side effect has been approved, and that is a thermal effect, which is the capacity of growing something. Now, what this committee has provided was something like a guidance of this. They try to broadly describe this issue, and they determine that electromagnetic energy may grow 1 degree Celsius the temperature in a living organism. So, taking the principle of warning, the Commission decided to describe the 1 Celsius rise in its guidance. So in Brazil, we reaffirm the provision of the guidance and recommendations provided by the World Health Organization. Thank you, Max, for your comments and for your contributions. Let me commend you on what Brazil has been doing. It's an example for the region. And once again, I would like to thank Nick BR and CGI BR for providing support and for giving us students so they can take classes online here in Argentina to have all these people interconnected. Thank you very much, Max. Hopefully, I'll see you in the future and to thank you in person. Hope you have a nice day and we'll be in touch. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me address this in Portuguese. Thank you very much and have a nice day. I would like to acknowledge for the support of the South School of Internet Governance for your initiative. I know that it was important because it's very important to share the contributions and to discuss internet governance because there are many things to do. And if we had a chance to raise awareness and to improve, we'll be understanding these new ideas. If you want to contact us in the future, Olga has our personal information. I'm sure that you can contact us if you have any doubts. Have a nice day and hope to see you in the future. Thank you very much.